So in the remaining time that we have, I do want to start, I basically open it up for questions. And in particular, I would like the PIs that have experience to really kind of share how they go about doing some things rather than hearing the hypotheticals from me. So we'll see who's best to answer the question. Yeah?
I have a student who can get funding from her institution, and she needs a letter from us. Do we have a form that we can kind of plug in the information that they need so that they can get support to show that they have the funds?
You mean like an invitation or an offer letter of
Yes.
some sort? We don't have a form for that because usually the offer letter that we submit, which makes it sort of official, you can send like a draft, but usually the offer letter that's being submitted, it's done after they've already sort of satisfied some of the visa requirements. So even, we don't have a template, but a simple letter saying, this is basically from the PI saying this is an invitation or an intent of invitation for this visitor.
So there's no requirements for that at all?
No.
Okay,
No.
thank you.
So for the student intern category, we do have an example letter that we could use as a starting point.
Okay.
So, and we're rolling out a new website in about 2 or 3 weeks from now. So, we didn't want to mislead you and show you our current website, and then a couple weeks from now you can't find it. But if you go just to the internship research page, it'll be obvious where the sample letter is.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Hudson?
Yeah, I think in the letter, the only hazard is you're not making any promises. I word mine, pending you successfully obtain funding, then I would help support you get a J-1 and can provide your desk in my lab. So I think if you don't make any promises, because we're not officers of the university, so I can't speak for NC State, but that's how we approach it.
Right, but the one template that we do offer is sort of this template of the EPA offer letter that's up there, which is sort of the officially endorsed university letter. So I think other than that, it's any simple letter of intent without making any promises is probably going to do. Yeah.
So we might have some exchanges where we hope to go back and forth a couple times, two times, like when by a secret. And it sounds like that would be a problem under this J-1 because it's a one-time deal for 2 years or something. Another way to get people to visit more frequently.
There are options for that. Again, we could be burdened down for a long time if we wanted to. Derek, do you mind clicking on the bars on repeat participation? And that is an active URL. If you have somebody that's coming and going regularly, you have a couple of options. For one, if they're going to be coming with gaps between their visits, and especially if they're going to be coming for durations of less than 6 months, then you can use a short-term scholar category, which doesn't impose any prohibitions on them coming back again. So if each visit you know is going to be less than 6 months, then choose the short-term scholar category. And if they're here for 3 months, go back home for 3 months or 6 months and then come back again, you can use that. The other option, which if they're coming a little more and traveling a little more regularly or frequently, then there is an option for keeping open the 5-year research scholar, but noting it that they're actually spending time doing research in another country, including their home country, for this period of time. And so you can sometimes keep the whole record open for that period of time. But if they walk away and abandon that program, then the clock starts ticking on their prohibition before they can come back again, which will be 2 years after.
You can keep it open and go back and forth.
You can, as long as we know. We have to collect documentation from the PI saying, yeah, this is part of their activity. They're not just doing research here, it's a collaboration. It has them going back to their home country or in sometimes 3rd or 4th or 5th countries. Yeah.
I was brand new to this process about this time last year when I started working with a Brazilian student who wanted to come and work with me. And I studied the GTI website, and it seemed to me at the time that the GTR was the best category, and so I proceeded on that basis. And then David told me that the GTN was really, the preferred category, so we went that direction. I was just wondering if the GTR is going to disappear
Yeah.
as a category. I think that's in a kind of confusing place now between
Yes.
these two.
And actually, we're discontinuing that
Okay,
because
okay.
some further discussions. The Department of State has not put it in black and white
Yeah.
that we can't do that,
Mhm.
but the people that interpret their own writings say, maybe you shouldn't have that word.
Yeah, okay.
So-
yeah.
so
I
we
think it would
decided
be
we're gonna-
confusing to keep it,
Yeah.
given these two options.
So we've removed that from our application
Okay.
process, and
Okay.
when we have our update here on the website, it won't
Yeah.
even be mentioned
Okay.
any longer.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Dr. Singler, did you?
Let me add one thing though. The graduate school does have a little-known and underused classification called the unclassified graduate student.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why it's not well known, but it is on their website. So if you do have a graduate student overseas who wants to come for a year or 2 years to actually do research in the department, they actually register for like 3 credits of $8.99 or $6.99 or something, maybe $6.95. But so there's a minimum requirement, but they would be graduate students, and there's even some talk about funding and everything, but they would go through an admission process, but as a non-degree student, but they would be an official graduate student and pay tuition fees. So that works for some people. So that for longer term or somebody who's more in the graduate department, you may want to consider that option.
So the tuition and fees on that are based on how many hours?
3 credits.
3 credits?
Dr. Sinclair, did you have anything that you wanted to add in your experience, like kind of how some of the benefits or some of the hiccups that you see in
Well, it's the
comparison?
most cost-effective thing I do to get people into my lab. I think in many cases people want to come on sabbatical, so they pay for themselves. You just have to have documentation of the source of their funds. Otherwise, I just offer the minimum, $1,500 or maybe $1,800, and that seems to satisfy almost everybody who wants to get into this country. So it's been very cost-effective. I haven't worried much about the English language issue. We get here and we struggle sometimes, usually not, but there have been 1 or 2. And I favor longer-term visits and shorter. We can't get much done in 3 months, 4 months. So I really try to get people to stay longer. If that means they have a 3-month funding, I'll try to bring up the other 3 months and get them into at least 6 months zone. And I've been doing this for 40 years, and I can guarantee you one thing: the rules you heard today will change. Nothing is static in this, and they all will change.
True enough. Yeah. Dr. Lindsay, do you have any?
I'll respond to the questions, but I don't have any.
Dr. House, do you have any?
Yeah, well, I have had very good experience with the J-1 process. I have people coming from Venezuela or Finland, and for them the same process applies. When they go to the embassy to get the J-1 visa, that seems to work very fast and easy. So I think it's a process that is very, I don't know the technicalities of the process, so I'm not dealing with any of this.
Yeah.
It seems it's very complex. What I do is I talk to the secretary in my department that is in charge of communicating with you. She sends an application, you send back a DS 2019 form, and that's sent to the student, and I have to do very little actually.
It's so easy. It's that easy too. No, and that's a good point actually, and that was part of the reason. I mean, it's nice to have Ann here because I think she and Dr. Lindsay are kind of working, and Thelma Roan in their department in chemistry is often our office's point of contact because she's the personnel rep for chemistry. That was part of the reason too. In some of the handouts that you did receive, and this is sort of a point of clarification. This spreadsheet or this flow chart gives an idea of sort of the process. But then these other materials, this is actually a printout of what is provided to the personnel rep. So it does provide a little bit more of the nuts and bolts, the details of, if you followed through on the process of how it actually gets done. And again, it's good for you to be familiar with the process, but you might not be the one that's actually pushing everything through. And then, likewise, we got this from our friends at HR Information Management, and it's basically, for an FYI, for the most common appointment codes, so job codes in the HR system that applies to foreign nationals.